evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night. Me and Mark are back asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? That was the same question I asked on fucking Saturday evening, Mark, when I saw that draw. What's going on with you, mate? How you doing?
Well, this week I'm trying to work out what the punishment's going to be for Man City. It'll be nothing.
Slap on the wrist. Well, it's a very interesting development, is that, and I'm pretty sure we will have a follow-up episode depending on how that goes. But yes, that is a very interesting development indeed. So we're going to get stuck into that, and as well as everything else. Obviously, we've got a match to talk about as well. Maybe not the result that we wanted. We're going to get stuck right into that in a second. Just before we do, a little reminder: if you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We're on 280 subscribers, I think. So loads of you smash the button. Really appreciate that. Loads more room for you. It's all free content here, Mondays and Wednesday shows and pop-up videos, just like match previews, reviews, bit of transfer banter. Even though the window's shut, that still rolls on. So make sure you join Evermore and you won't regret it. And we're live tonight. As always, we've got a few in the comments with a few early starters in there. We've got old Angry Noob Gamers there. Evening to you, mate. He's looking forward to a banger show. Top man. BT's in the house, as is Ash as well. And just before we do get stuck in, Mark, this was something I wanted to talk about. BT's already smashed it in here. So obviously everyone's aware of the tragedy in Turkey with this horrendous earthquake, which has claimed the lives, I think, of nearly 650 people or something. It's absolutely horrendous.
It's close to 2,500 now.
Oh my god! I didn't even know it was that many, man. I saw a story earlier. That's fucking awful. It really is. And in among the people trapped in the rubble was former Newcastle United midfielder Christian Atsu. There's been loads of different stories going on social media. That there's been a few people who've said this one, so that's why I've pulled it up by BT. But apparently Atsu has been found alive. Following reports, he was trapped in the rubble in the earthquake. He's currently in hospital, got injuries to his right foot and breathing difficulties. So, we wish Christian all the best and, recovery. And I think he's one of the lucky ones, Mark, isn't he? What a terrible thing to happen, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just utterly tragic. And looking at the news footage earlier on, it was absolutely horrific. And, terrible. For him, his family, if everyone, I guess for them, it is safe and he if he's getting treatment in hospital and stuff, that's great news. I just hope that that it's a dark place to go, but I hope that death toll doesn't get too much higher. But I do fear it will. But I'm not a religious person at the best of times, but you can't do anything but just pray that everybody, that more and more people are all right.
Absolutely. No, it's a very somber way to start the show, but I thought we'd have to bring it up because it's a real sad bit of news, that is. But Gibbo's in the house. How you doing, Gibbo? Good to see you, mate. So let's get stuck into the game then, Mark. Obviously a draw on Saturday at St James's Park. Loads of people were talking about, was it a cup hangover? Was it the kind of the calm after the storm type of a thing? It was a difficult one, wasn't it? I mean, no doubt whatsoever, you've got some of your fantastic slides in a minute to illustrate this, but I think all you needed were these two white things in the front of your eyes to realise how much we were missing Bruno Guimarães's magic in this game, Mark, wasn't it? I think for me, probably the best player on the pitch was Declan Rice for West Ham. And I'll let you obviously give your opinion in a second, Mark, but for me, if Bruno's on that park, I think that he's more interested in stopping Declan Rice is more interested in stopping Bruno than he is pushing forward. Would you agree with that, mate?
Yeah, I think so. There's certainly a lot more goes into stopping Newcastle's play at that point in terms of shutting Bruno down. So it takes away one of their midfielders, and there's a couple of slides there that I've got that just show the way that they focus their defence at times against Newcastle. And it was very rigid. They pressed very, very well. It was like watching Newcastle at times because the way that they pressed high. If you go back to when we looked a little bit closer at the City game earlier in the season, they pressed like Newcastle did in that City game where they pressed high. They tried to shut down areas that they thought Newcastle could be dangerous in. And they made some mistakes because Newcastle still made chances, albeit not particularly brilliant ones throughout. There were a couple of opportunities where really you should have put the game to bed. But you look and you think, well, if Bruno's sitting in that midfield, that ticks a little bit better. There's a little bit more variation. passing range is a little bit better. The quality coming from that central area is just a little bit better. And it takes away probably one of their midfielders just to kind of sit and try to stop him dictate, which then frees up space for the others.
Yeah, I mean, we started off like a house on fire, really. Obviously, Joe Willock gets the goal. I mean, to be fair, Stevie Wonder could see that Miggy had the ball out of play because it was a good 3 yards over the line. To be fair, I think everyone in the ground could probably see it. Good finish by Joe Willock, which was a shame because he needs a goal. But then, almost at like 11 seconds after that, I think Sky was still showing the replay of the Joe Willock goal, and then Wilson's got in the back of the net, and it's a beautiful ball through by Sean. I think you got a slide mark for it as well. Beautiful ball through by Sean Longstaff. And I think, you'd said just before we come on, this was one of the only times that the West Ham kind of broke that shape that they had, that rigid shape to allow Wilson to kind of breach the defence. But I mean, Sean had a great week, obviously 2 goals in the cup, getting us through at the final. And then he picks this pass. He could have panicked, he could have rushed it like Sean's done before, but it was a confident player, Mark, wasn't it, to play that ball through to Wilson. And Wilson's been screaming for passes like this, I think, hasn't he, ever since he's come back from the World Cup. And without Bruno there, I was worried who was gonna release it. And fair play to Sean, it was a cracking ball for the goal, mate.
It was. I'm just trying to find it on my sort of side thing here. So
there he is. I thought I'd rambled on long enough for you to find it there seamlessly.
But I'll go back to the first two, because this was the way that sort of West Ham set up in defence in their own half, and it's a really sort of rigid. Well, we're going to play the sort of the passing lanes and stop the ability to play through the lines. When it broke down, and again, you can just see that middle 3 that just sit with the 5 behind them. But when it broke down, it allowed Newcastle to play through. And that was what happened early on. It happened a couple of times later on as well. And that ball from Sean is perfectly weighted. The run from Wilson is perfectly timed. And he's able to get onto it without any hesitation, without any trouble, and take that shot on first time. When we come to the later one, there's a huge difference in the way that one's played, despite it being a great through ball from Anthony Gordon. Yeah, you saw a couple of times where, again, you see the little breakdown in the way that West Ham defended. So that in this one, Joe was able to drive through the centre of that midfield and make that space. And Sean's down on this right-hand side to then play the ball through. Now, after Sean's played the great ball, the first one, he then just has he fluffs his lines in this one. And really where he should have played the ball is sort of almost along the deck into the Wilson running onto it to hit that first time. He just overplays it, and he ends up almost trying to lob the keeper. But again, it's just, there were those times, excuse the cats fighting in the background.
It wouldn't be Monday night without the cat in the background.
Honestly,
it wouldn't be. Ash is buzzing. Ash will be in the comments in a minute. He's buzzing the cats in the house.
No, it showed overall. I mean, there were examples of times when Newcastle were able to break through. They were able to get through those lines, and Miggy did a couple of times. He did a little bit more than I've seen recently, where he was able to sort of just make those runs through sort of the gaps of defenders or round defenders rather than getting stuck. But it's not happening as much as it did, and he's getting stuck sort of wider, and it having to then cut back and try and find Trippier to put the ball in again. So there are still issues. I still think there's a lack of fitness overall in terms of the amount of games that everybody's having to play. There's not the options off the bench at the moment. But there were signs there, and there have been signs throughout this little bit of a slump, we'll call it, since the World Cup, where despite the fact that Newcastle aren't taking chances, they're still getting into areas to create them, or they're not as probably clear-cut as they were before.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the terms of the stats, I think in the game we passed 557 times versus their 329 times. I think out of those 557, something like 191 of them were in the final third. But as you rightly say, that killer ball wasn't there, and that finesse wasn't there that Bruno gives you. I think, we might as well get stuck into, I mean, individual performances. I mean, I think I've already seen some comments there from Noob Gamer. For me, Joe Litton played really well, I think, when he dropped back into that midfield, because Rice was bossing it. He really was at the time. And I think when Joe dropped back in there, it gave Rice a bit of a problem because Joe played really well against him. And I think Rice knew he was in a bit of a game there. So he kind of nullified a bit of Rice's control of the game when Joe was in there, because he was just as worried about Joe breaking and running, with the power that he does, as you showed in the slide before there. One player who was massively disappointing, Mark, that came in, and he's got all the headlines for the wrong reasons, was Maxi. Noob Game has already said there, Maxi was awful. He's been out for 5 months. He needs games to get back. But having said that, do we have games and time to give him? I've heard this kind of, I wouldn't say excuse is the word, but I've heard this kind of allowance for Maxi. He needs to run the games and all that. I mean, we're going to get more into this on the Wednesday with the boys, Mark. But Maxi can't afford to come into games like that and drag his heels. He can't afford to do that. He has to have an impact. Now, that's maybe unfair, but it's the truth. He's not been in this side. He's been fit since November. He's not played. He's not been in this team. And the reason he's not in this team, and I know you'll probably give us a bit more of a detailed statistical view, Mark, but Eddie Howe doesn't trust him because he's not disciplined enough. He does not keep shape. He does not, and he did defend quite well. I'll give him that. He got stuck in. He did more defensive work than actually did defensive work, but he's not giving Eddie Howe what he wants in that team right now. And it's the same as John Joe Shelby. This team has evolved to play a style of football that doesn't suit their game anymore. And that's why Shelby's gone, because his body can't keep up with the intensity. Maxi can't keep up with the discipline of the game. And I think that's the huge problem that he has. And when we have a game like that and we're missing Bruno, we're looking for somebody else to pick up that creative mantle, Mark. And he just didn't do it, did he? He just did not do it. That's disappointing.
It is. I mean, look, he started off really well because you saw him track back. I mean, he went in for a slide tackle on the edge of the box, missed it, got up, ran back to the byline, then sort of won the ball back and then broke forward. And you just thought, all right, this looks like the kind of effort that you want out of him. But he offered so little going the other way. And even, running from deep, which we've always said that, look, he works in a better way when he picks the ball up deeper and runs with plenty of space for him to go. And even then, it just didn't look like the Maxi we've seen over the last season or two. And he's not the same force. I get giving him some leeway in the fact that he hasn't played, but he has an opportunity now. He has to take it. And there were chances for him to run at West Ham defence at the weekend and create problems, like he did when he came on the other week. When he was at the Southampton game when he came on and
him and Isak changed it.
And you just thought, come on and do that, but it just never got going for him. And the difference then when Gordon came on, Gordon looked sharper. He looked eager to come and find find the ball.
As Angry's saying there, that could be the end of Maxi, with Gordon coming on looking that bright so quickly.
But he also came and sort of found that position in the middle of the field. And the prime example is the ball through to Wilson later on, where he comes and finds that position just on the edge of the centre circle, turns and plays the ball through. I don't think Maxi plays that ball. I don't think Maxi comes and finds that ball at that point. I do. We've said this a lot. We love watching him play when he's on when he's on form. There's nothing else like him in the Premier League.
There's nobody better than him in the Premier League when he's on it, mate. You can't deal with it.
And I agree with Jack's comment. It is a shame because I really do like watching him play, but it's just not working for him.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, as the game obviously progressed, we get the first goal. And we'll talk about their goal in a second, and then obviously we are going to talk about Anthony Gordon. Touched him there, but we're going to have a little chat about how we felt he did when he come on. But just I think you had a slide, Mark, for the goal. I mean, it was disappointing because I think we get that one goal that's obviously disallowed. And then Wilson scores straight away, and you almost think, right, come on, Newcastle, this is it. This is our game for the taking. And credit to West Ham. I think Declan Rice said it after the game. He said, after they warmed up as the captain, he turned around to the rest of his teammates and said, that's the best we've warmed up all season. And then we got absolutely smashed in the first kind of few minutes of the game. But credit to West Ham, credit to Moyes. they grouped back together, and they made it frustrating for us. They quieted the crowd down. That little bit of anxiety started to creep back in again, and then they get the corner. Declan Rice of all people puts it in, and I mean Trippier's got to do better, Mark, on the back stick. If you've got the slide there to pull up, Trippier's a brilliant player. There he is there. So I mean Trippier's absolutely fantastic, captain fantastic. I love him to bits, but what he's doing there, he's and I think Sky even said this. He's more interested in roughhousing with Paqueta, and I'll give Paqueta his due, Mark. Paqueta was very clever, so he got stuck into him and he just pulled him where he wanted him, didn't he? And then he took back in one touch and strike, and it kind of caught Trippier by surprise, I think, mate, didn't it? For an experienced defender as he is,
for Trippier, that's exactly it. For an experienced defender to get caught out like that is disappointing. Like, he's been magnificent all season. That's not.
Absolutely. But he was on Saturday. He was still good on Saturday. Could put good balls in, and
he was. I thought Trippier played very well. I think you'd probably give him 7.5 and 8 out of 10, except for that one moment, because it's almost naivety to be caught out like that, to be caught in that battle at the back post rather than knowing where the ball is. So you look at that side again, you think, well, he doesn't know where the ball is, and the ball's almost at the 6-yard box on the opposite side. And it's, you just look and go, Paquetá, I should put.
Paquetá.
I shall be happy with that, because always
do not say packet of rice like fucking Kelly Cates was trying our best to rinse out on Sky Sports. It was the crappiest banter I've ever heard in my life. What was she talking about?
But no, I think Paquetá has had him there, and fair play. Look, he's probably played to try and do that. He's played to try and get into him a little bit and just pull him where he wants to pull him, and then broken off right at the moment he had to go and put the ball in the back of the net. And it's a mistake from the defender, but it's. These things happen, don't they? I mean, Newcastle have done it to teams before, so it is going to happen. It's just when it's Trippier, I think if you look at what some of the younger players, you kind of go, all right, there's a little bit of that naivety there, but Trippier shouldn't be getting caught like that.
Well, as Angry says, he's been caught a couple of times on the back stick. I think Spurs was the other one, wasn't it? Where he got caught by Kane, I think, didn't he, on the back stick? And again, it was a clever player just trying to pull him out with a great bit of movement. It's Levy. Very nice, Ash. Very nice. I love a movie reference. I mean, just talking about Trippier in the other context, Mark. For that little switch off that he does there. He's had 100 touches in the game. He's got a 79% passing accuracy, 3 key passes. Out of 11 crosses, he's got 4 in, and out of 12 long balls, he's got 7 on target. So it's almost like we need 2 Trippiers, don't we? We almost need a Trippier on the right wing and a Trippier at right back, and then would be sorted, mate, wouldn't we? I think
exactly. I mean that 4 crosses hitting a target out of 11 is good. One big chance created, which he'll be the Wilson header later on from the free kick. But he was also brilliant defensively. 4 of 6 ground duels, 2 of 4 aerial duels. I thought he played very, very well. It's just that one moment that lets that performance down. So
against big lads as well, Antonio played really well for them. I thought he was pulling people all over the place. I think I said in an Evermore a few weeks back that I would have had Antonio as a backup striker when it looked like he was going to leave West Ham, and some people were scoffing at that. But I tell you what, we always take the piss and say Chris Wood occupies defenders. Mikel Antonio does occupy defenders. You've got to give him that. He's not the player he used to be. He's a big old handful of a lad, isn't he, to be fair?
We love that saying here, don't we? He does. But no, you're right, he does. And I thought he played, you're right, he played very well. He kept Botman on his toes. I thought Botman had another good game.
He did, played well. A different type of game as well, Mark. A bit of rough and tumble, a bit of getting stuck in.
I saw a lot of people saying he had a bad game. I thought Botman played very well. He was 90+% passing.
I thought Botman was worse Tuesday night than he was Saturday. I thought he was more ropey Tuesday night.
He won 3 of 4 duels. He touched the ball an awful lot. I thought he looked very good. I thought Shaw was the weaker of the two
He did get caught out a bit, Shaw, I think. Our position a few times, I think he got caught. And Trippier had to step in and kind of wipe his arse a bit from, didn't he? But, I mean...
But I think... So I was going to say, I think Shaw was trying to make up for the fact that Bruno wasn't there. So trying to just play in that little bit higher role to try and utilize his passing. And the ball he plays over for Miggy in the first half, where they create the opportunity. And I'll come to that in a second, because I thought that was... in fact, I'll bring it up now, actually. Where are we? So that was the Joe one. So it's this where Miggy, and this is one of the things that Miggy does very well. And it's nice to see him actually having done this again, because I haven't seen this for a few games, where he comes short, lays the ball off, and then spins and goes. And he's got the defender, done the defender completely here, lays the ball off. Now, this ball normally goes to Bruno. And this is what I'm saying. This comes to Cher. Cher plays the ball over the top, and he's away. The first touch is magnificent, by the way, from Miggy when he takes it down. He then spots the overlap and run from Trippier, which is what you'd expect, and then puts it into the box. 2 arrows I put on this are the two runs from the midfielders. So you see Sean on the right and obviously Willock on the left, both making almost the identical run or run into the identical area, so that when the ball drops, and I get why St. Maximin shoots at this point, but there's nobody on the edge of the box. And if that ball falls and there's somebody there, does that sort of give Maxi the option to then just open his body up and just lay the ball off to somebody running in?
Well, again, you know who's missing from there, don't you? You know who's missing from that spot.
Exactly.
Bruno would be there. Bruno would be there on the edge of the box, waiting for that ball to be rolled back just to pick a spot. And I think that was the big thing that we were missing. But there was somebody in the game who added a bit of injection. Somebody we were very interested to see, and it was Flash Gordon, Anthony Gordon. So he came onto the pitch, massive reception from the Newcastle fans. I think Maxi would have been a bit gutted probably with the game that he played, and then he knows this kid's there. He's probably seen him in training, probably seen he looks a bit lively. He's probably thought, fucking hell, I didn't need a game like that. I needed a better game. So he looked a bit frustrated when he come off. But Gordon was on for 21 minutes. He had 15 touches. His passing, he was 90% accurate passing out of 10 passes that he hit, and one key ball, which was the chance for Wilson, which I think you have got as well made. And I mean, that was. I think even before that, I think he come on, Mark, and he was full of pace, he was full of energy, and I think even his first touch, he had a lovely give and go with Longstaff, I think it was, and then he was finding Willock with some nice passes too, and he looks a really handy footballer. All the talk about is, his attitude and his, his temperament and his, Bellamy-esque kind of persona. But he looks a good footballer, Mark, doesn't he? He looks like he's got a bit about him. He's got a football brain. I mean, the through ball to Wilson, I think, was his key moment in the game. And I think Wilson should do better with this, mate. I really do. Maybe a bit harsh on Wilson, but even Wilson said that after the game himself. It's a beautiful pass, Mark, isn't it? Right slip through for Wilson. Beautiful ball.
It is. I think I've missed off the first slide.
First pass.
So
we'll get the gist. So
the ball comes through from the halfway line, and it's what lets Wilson down is this first touch. So as he takes that first touch at this point, he's probably just a little bit too light on it. So that when he takes the second, he has to take this second touch. So between those 2 points, the lighter shade on the pitch, he then has to take the second touch, which then allows the defender to come in.
Great tackle, though. Great tackle.
It is. It's great defending at that point. But if his first touch is slightly heavier, it just carries him away from the defender and allows this part just to be on the edge of the box. So at that point, he's shooting. And it was one of those, like he takes the first one brilliantly. The second one, and at that point, he just needs to take a better first touch. And he's in, but it's nice to see him getting those opportunities. He's playing on the shoulder, and he's making those runs through. He's timing them well, and that's really promising to see. So we've seen the slump in his sort of form, or the lack of opportunities that he's had. It's just nice to see him getting those opportunities again, and having the players put balls through like that for him.
Absolutely. Well, it's a nice segue then that in our section that Wilson is back in the goals. I mean, we'll be wondering when it's going to happen. Typical Callum, when he scored the first one, he just looked like he'd never not scored for weeks and weeks on end. He looked like it's just, he'd scored 3 last game or something. But I think the first goal is brilliant by Callum Wilson. Typical Callum Wilson, great finish. The second one, we've just said there, he knows he should do better with that. The header as well. I mean, he even says in the interview after the game that he didn't need to jump. And I think he just, by jumping, he almost took the sting. Yeah, he almost took the sting out of the cross. The cross was so good, and it was more or less a free header in a way, because he didn't have to jump. That he could have just planted his feet and picked a spot, and it would have been obviously. I'm no one to tell Callum Wilson how to finish, but he knows he should have done better with that, and he could have had a hat trick. But the one thing I think that was missing as well as Bruno. And listen, I'm excited about what Gordon can do. Personally, I think he'll start against Bournemouth. We'll talk about that on Wednesday, but I think he'll come in and start because Maxi was honking. And I think Gordon give Howe exactly what he wanted in that 20-minute spell. But going back to Wilson and the attacking options, we're going to look at this in a minute in terms of where Newcastle have been stumbling over the last few weeks. But for me personally, I think if Alexander Isak is even fit to come off the bench, we win that game at the weekend. Because if you look at that through ball and that chance, no offense to Wilson, there's no way that defender's catching Isak if he's 1-on-1. No chance. Isak is through, and that's a goal, in my opinion. I think Wilson's still lacking that little burst of speed, mate.
Maybe, but I still think if Wilson's first touch, he doesn't have to slow down to take the second touch. He's away from the defender anyway. So,
is that a confidence thing? Is he because he hasn't scored for a while? But he's just scored in the first half.
I just think it's a mistimed touch. That's all it is. I don't think it's anything like that. I don't think he looked unfit. I don't think he looked tired at that point.
He looked better. He looked sharper. I thought
much sharper. I just think it was not a poor first touch. It just wasn't the first touch he wanted. So that when he tries to carry the ball away from the defender, he just doesn't get enough on it. Like if he puts 2 or 3 more yards on that first touch, he's through. That becomes a shot on goal, and probably 2-1 at that point, because he's such a good finisher. Isak possibly does the same thing. He just doesn't take that first. I think Isak's pace will take him away all day. But again, if he has to slow down for a second touch at that point, it just allows the defender to carry their momentum through to try and get in the way. So it's one of those we'll never know, isn't it? But I do think it's just that. I just don't think he got enough on that first touch.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like you say, we had our chances to win the game again. We'll get stuck into where we're struggling in a minute. Exciting to see Gordon, and obviously Callum back on the goal trail. Isak's already apparently been past fit from the concussion rule to play against Bournemouth, which is great. So that gives us more options. But there was one thing in the game that happened that I think we were all a little bit pissed off about, and we don't want to see ever again. And listen, he had a brilliant game, especially when he went back in the midfield, because I just think he's phenomenal in there. But Joe Linton's dive, Mark, that was awful. I know some people saying the West Ham player dive. I mean, listen, the ref was giving West Ham everything really at one point. We were getting nothing from it. But I mean, Joe bursts through, doesn't he, at the box, and then he dives, and it's such a blatant dive. I mean, Tom Daly would have given him a 9. I think that's how bad the dive was. And and he got up and he was kind of smirking a little bit, almost out of embarrassment, and he got a yellow card for it. And Joe, we don't want to see them dives, mate. I think actually Joe as well, Mark. I'm pretty sure he is on. Is 8 yellow cards? So if he gets booked in the next 2 games, he misses the final. So he's got to be really, really careful. Is it what refreshed? Is it?
It refreshes after the first half.
Right, okay.
So he should be all right.
Is he okay? Thank fuck for that.
I think he might have a few more, but I think he's probably up to 2 or 3 now.
No, Ash is saying if he gets 2 more bookings,
he still gets 2 more. I can't remember. That was what I heard. Refreshed after the first half of the season. So
no, I heard he was on. I was heard if he gets 2 more yellow cards, that's him missing the final. So if that's the case, if he gets booked against Bournemouth, I wouldn't play him against Liverpool. I really wouldn't, because you need him in the final, man.
Oy, there's a tough decision to make, isn't there? Because he's just
no Bruno, no Joe. I mean, unless you rest him against Bournemouth and you play him against Liverpool, Because I mean, to be honest, even when he got a yellow card, he was flying into tackles because that's Joe's game, and I love him. I don't want him to change because he's just an absolute monster. But you don't get a stupid yellow card for stuff like that, Joe. You know, just, or running forward and grabbing a guy by the throat. Look at Casemiro at the weekend. You can't do stuff like this. You get yourself in trouble. You know, it's that Brazilian hot blood, isn't it? You know, they seem to have it, don't they? This generation of Brazilians. They're more interested in nutting people than doing keep-ups in airports. I don't know what's going on with them, mate.
I love the 98 reference there, doing keep-ups in airports. That was a great advert.
Oh, man, what an advert. Best advert of all time. But yeah, that worries me a little bit with Joe. If that hasn't reset, he's walking a tightrope, man. We need him and Bruno to win that final. There's no doubt in my mind about that. We need them both.
I'm just looking at. I think he's had 3 yellows since the Arsenal game, which might be the. I can't remember where the.
So that's the 5. Is that 5 yellow cards and a suspension? Then is it? Is that how it works?
He's had
5 yellows
so far. This no, hang on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ash Gordon has to start as well, mate. 100%. Couldn't agree more.
6, 7. He's had 8 yellow cards so far this season.
Yeah.
Now,
so 2 more.
I thought there was a reset. Maybe I've probably got that wrong, but yeah, I mean he's had. I've lost it again. This is where you don't do this live. Yeah, he's had 3 since the Arsenal game at least. So it's not many. It's not many games to get them in, to be fair. But he's a massive miss. If he was to miss the final by picking up another couple of bookings,
right.
And then you go, well, do you rest him? But who plays? Who's gonna control the midfield that in the way that he can boss a midfield? There is nobody else to come in, and this kind of comes into one of my questions I put in the chat the other day was letting Shelvey go short-sighted because
I think in hindsight now, yeah, but
as much as he's not going to play, you remove an option. You've lost an option to come off the bench or to give somebody a rest, or if somebody does, God forbid, you lose another player now. There's just nobody. I mean, you bring in Anderson, but I'm not sure he's ready for a sustained run in the league.
He's sure he's not ready. I mean, just a comment there from Ash about Casemiro. If Man United appeal, it might get extended. I mean, that would be absolutely fucking superb. That would be absolutely superb. And Ash has taken the points where they're saying there. He thought Anderson looked okay when he come on. You know what worried me about Anderson was he's got loads of ability, Mark. We've spoke about, you know, the lad, we love him, you know, PK adores him. But he got at the edge of the box on Saturday because he gets at these positions, he wriggles free really well in these positions. And I just thought, pull a trigger, son, pull a trigger. And he looked like a rabbit in the headlights. He was panicking, he was looking for a pass. And you were like, son, just pull a trigger, make yourself a fucking hero. Like, what, you know, just have a go. And he looked so nervous. And I know that'll come in with confidence. We look at Longstaff the other night, look like fucking Frank Lampard, didn't he, the other night? You know, and this will come for Anderson, but that's the bit that disappoints me, I think, with Anderson, is that I just want him to be brave and have a go and be decisive, you know. I was saying, let's put Mad Dog in midfield. That's a good show, mate. Absolutely.
I tell you what, he'd scare a few, wouldn't he?
He would be, but do you know? Here's a thought. So, just, I mean, I know we'll obviously talk a lot more about the final closer to the final. We maybe even do a live watch along, mate. Let us know in the comments, guys. You want a live watch along for the final for me and Mark? Let us know in the comments. We talked about this as a joke earlier on. We're game if you guys will watch it. But I think looking at the final, looking at the formations, if indeed Joe was out, I mean, as long as Bruno, Willock, and Longstaff are there, you got your 3. But I mean, you could even argue for a change in midfield, a change in formation. Maybe play with some 2 up front with Isaac Wilson. You know, you could even look to do something like that. Is the cat in the camera? I love it, mate. Absolutely. You don't get this on other podcasts. But yeah, but I think, you know, we have got the options there to change things. But I mean, if Manchester United are without Casemiro, that would be a massive boost for us, because Bruno would boss that midfield without Casemiro there. I really do think he would do.
I don't think he's missing. I think he gets his 3 games, and I think that's it.
I thought there was a bird in your house. Don't you speak about his wife like that, Ash. We'll get cancelled. You're not allowed to say things like that anymore. But yeah, so I think, I suppose in closing on the game, frustrating result. But listen, we're still, I think, the most unbeaten team, if that's the right way to phrase it, in the Premier League. We're the most hardest to beat team in the Premier League. We've only been beaten once this season by Jurgen Klopp and his fucking time traveling watch and his Turkish teeth. That was another brilliant example of how to rewrite reality by Jurgen Klopp at the weekend. If you're not happy you've been beat 3-0, just scratch off the third goal and you've only been beat 2-0. So thanks for that, Jurgen.
Speaking of just the ridiculousness of interviews this weekend, Klopp's was one. I don't count it because they barely got into into a half in the second half of the game. Can we just all sort of just admire the brilliance that was Nathan Jones's interview, though?
Oh my God, John Carver-esque is what that was.
Just, I still can't wrap my head around it. It was just the most brilliant piece of television. I've watched it about 5 times, and it gets funnier every time. I just don't know what he's on.
Well said, Ash. Well said, Ash.
I mean, talking from the manager of a football club to start talking about compromises with the fans.
Oh, mate!
And compromises with everything else. You're the manager. Lead.
Oh, mate, he's a fucking. You reminded me like David Brent from The Office when he was talking like that. I just thought, what an absolute tit. How's the Bacon's up for the watch along, mate? We'll see how many other people are, but we might jump on and do that. So, do go on. I've missed this. What did he say? Nathan Jones, he basically just said, Ash, that he's made compromises. And I think he said at one point he was the best in Europe when he was at Luton Town.
Best statistically in terms of XG and all sorts when he was. It was just the most bizarre thing. I can't do it justice. Ash, go if you look. Actually, the great summary was HLTCO on Twitter.
On Twitter.
But go and watch. It's like a 30-second clip. Honestly, it's hilarious. It's just brilliant.
It was there's some real fucking weapons, isn't there, in the football management world at the minute? There really, really is. Honestly, just he'll be out of a job in a week or two, mate. Just like Jesse Marsh as well. So I suppose it was disappointing, mate. Kind of getting that result, especially with Spurs winning, puts a bit of pressure on us for the top 4. But we're still having a phenomenal season. We've still got a brilliant record. As long as we can get Isak back and fit, get Bruno away from this suspension, get him back in the side. We've got some decent games coming up. Hopefully, we can keep it in and amongst that top 4 picture. And if we can win that pot, we'll be absolutely buzzing. But there's no doubt, mate, there has been a bit of a change after the World Cup. We were all systems go. We were all guns blazing into the World Cup. We didn't have that many players go to the World Cup as well. We only had 6, I think. 6 if you include Grand Qual. So it wasn't loads. And most of them never played. Wilson didn't really play a lot. He had 1 or 2 cameos. Trippier had a couple of games. Pope didn't play at all. Bruno was pretty much neither here nor there for Brazil. So it's not like the squad were burnt out. And I think Shaw went home early as well, didn't he? So we didn't have loads of games in the World Cup. But you've got some interesting statistics, Mark, haven't you, as to how we've fared since we've come back from the World Cup, mate, and just some of the differences as well in the way we've played.
Yeah, so I think just looking at it, I think everybody can see it, and the eye test tells you that some things not worked since come back, and it's nothing that Newcastle have particularly done wrong. I just think it's just a little bit of a slump, but the numbers to go along with it when you look at it, and in terms of defence, it's sort of pretty much every statistic is up. Or equal. The only one that really is really down is the amount of aerials that the team have won overall. In terms of possession, your possession's higher, more passes, more touches, controlled in sort of more touches in the attacking third and the midfield third. So you're controlling the ball probably a little bit further forward. In terms of Nick Pope, he's had less to do, less shots on target against. Less goals against. And And then you sort of look at the attacking stats, and that's kind of where the difference is at this point. So you're creating less clear cut chances there. The key passes are less per game. The shot creating actions and the goal creating actions are obviously less per game. In terms of shots are down, shots on target are down, shots on target percentage is down at quite a chunk. So there is that definite barrier now at in the forward positions where it's just not clicking, and I think it will come back. Like I said, I don't think Newcastle are doing anything particularly wrong at this point. They're still creating chances. They're still getting into those areas. They're just not clear cut. But the XG to go with it, and I've put the XG a little bit different on there, where you've got XG and goals together. So pre-World Cup, it was 24.4 XG, 29 goals. So you're scoring 4.6 more goals than you had expected goals. Since the World Cup, it's 9.5 XG and it's only 5 goals.
Yeah,
so that'll change. Those sort of stats tend not to stay like that long term.
If we batter Bournemouth 4-0 or something, then they change straight away, don't they? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the prime example of overscoring or underscoring XG, the best example to give you is Darwin Núñez. Darwin Núñez last season for Benfica massively overscored in XG. It was never going to continue. He was never going to come into the Premier League and continue that reign of form, as we've seen.
Yeah.
So those things tend to right themselves over time. And get back to somewhere sort of close to what you'd expect them to be. So I think Newcastle probably overdid it in the first half. They're sort of underdoing it. At some point, it'll sort of even itself out, and you get close to where you should be.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, what's new, Pussycat? There, Tom Jones there lurking in the background. I can see the tail going there, mate. But Jack's saying we're dominating in most areas of the pitch. We're just not converting the chances, which is really the biggest problem, as your stats absolutely say there as well, mate. And Angry saying that it's not just Wilson, Miggy not shooting. Miggy's runs are being tracked. Yeah, with that dink ball over the top from Bruno. Yes, a few times that's been closed down. I love this comment from Ash. Got the Jaws theme in my head. We should start playing that, Ash. As soon as he comes on, we should start playing that, mate. But we might just have to have him on a separate camera. I think, like cat watch. We'll just cat cam. We'll have him on a separate camera, and you can just see when he's going to be naughty. And then you can give us a warning in the comments, so Mark's aware. But yeah, I think there is an element of that as well, Mark. There is an element of teams of kind of, I wouldn't say sussed us out, but they know what Miggy's potentially going to do. They know to try and wind Bruno up and get in his face. They know maybe do the same for Joe as well. But it's quite funny. So no matter what tactics people have tried to work out, they still don't seem to realise that Joe Willock is really fast because they always give him a yard and he just goes down the way. And I don't know why they do this, but I love it because no one seems to figure out Joe Willock's actually really quick.
He's quite deceptive though, isn't he? Like he doesn't start quick, but then he just burns away.
He looks gangly, doesn't he? Maybe they look at him and go, he's not quick. Someone told me to mark him. He's not quick at all. And then all of a sudden, he's just completely utterly gone, isn't he? But so Jack's saying that the World Cup was always going to dampen the momentum we built the first half of the season. Just seems to be a confidence thing now. Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, I think adding Gordon in will definitely not just add quality to the squad, but might give a few of them a kick up the arse as well. I don't think there was any coincidence that Sean banged in 2 goals the minute we're signing Anthony Gordon, because he's thinking, I don't want to lose my place in the team. This lad coming in, and Joe Willock hopefully will be the same. Isak coming back, looking sharp and training might give Wilson a kick up the arse. So it makes players better. I mean, the only issue that we'll have, I think you're right, Mark, at the back, if Shaw does have a wobble, there's nobody really to come in to replace him. We're going to talk about Dan Burn on Wednesday more because I'm still very worried about us living this charmed existence of Dan Burn at left back. I think we've got off really, really lightly. We're going to talk about this more on the Wednesday if Mark makes it to Wednesday.
Jesus Christ. He's literally just launched himself from across the room at this. I only got my arm up to just try to stop him.
So for everybody watching, my cats are asleep in the kitchen where I've shut them up. So I'm quite lucky to be able to do that. But Mark's living in the danger zone. A little Top Gun reference there just for Ash. Mark is bleeding out live on the camera, Ash says. It's turned into a snuff video. Mark's going to be out for 6 months. We have to go to the transfer market and get somebody on free.
I've got a Marcelino injury.
Oh God, Marcelino injury. But yeah, I mean, just a point on Callum actually as well. I think I did send you something. So Callum scored, I think it's 27 goals now. So he moves one ahead of Michael Owen, the proverbial shithouse, and he ties with Craig Bellamy. I think he's only got one more to get ahead of Obafemi Martins, I think. So I hope Callum, certainly gets, well over 30 goals for us, and he deserves it for the way he's played. But I mean, it was nice to see shades of him coming back, but we really need, in my opinion, to win against Bournemouth. We need a convincing win, I think, as well, Mark, for conference. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's just a convincing, confident performance again, and just give the team that all right, yes, we've had a little bit of a lull, but no, we can still do it. We can still, compete for this top 4 place. I sort of have my thoughts on the top 4 challenge now. I think we'll probably cover that a little bit more
on Wednesday.
Yeah. But I think they absolutely still can. There are still teams falling over themselves, but it's just about belief. And I think if Newcastle can, and especially get a couple of convincing results now, without Bruno there, to know that they can still do it, that they can still play without him, they can still get results without him, and go away to Bournemouth and really put a show on, and get 3 or maybe 4, and we've seen that in sort of previous games where the Brentford game, the Villa game, just go and get a couple more, and really put their foot down and go, no, this is just where we should be. So yeah, and that runs then into the Liverpool game. Hopefully you get a result then that leads into the final. So we really need a positive performance.
Yeah, we could do a couple of good performances, like you say, going into that game. Because I mean, Manchester United will be quite distracted with European, adventures as well. So for us, if we can have a couple of good domestic games going into that, and hopefully Liverpool will be just as shit as they are now, because that's a great fixture to have. At St James's Park, if they're playing as crap as they are, because they'll be dreading playing us if we're on one and fit and firing. And certainly if Isaac's in the goals and Wilson's in the goals, and Sean's playing well and Joe Linton's dominating, they'll not want to play Newcastle United at all. And I'm sure Klopp will jump into his big book of excuses to come up with some reason why he got beat. Maybe it was the smell of sausage rolls from the Greggs factory or something, I don't know, that just put his players off. Who knows? There'll be some kind of weird and wonderful excuse that he'll come up with. But I mean, the Bournemouth fixtures are probably a kind one to us. I think, if we go there and play our game, we should win that game. Bournemouth don't have a lot to really trouble us, but yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things to consider, as we said there, Mark. Obviously, Joe Linton walking the tightrope. Even Miggy, I think already said in our comments, Miggy could do with a rest. I mean, I know we'll talk about this more probably on Wednesday, maybe, but if he's fit, would you be tempted, if he was fit, would you be tempted to stick Isak one side and Gordon the other, and even drop Miggy and give Miggy a rest? Would you be tempted to do that?
I think I don't think it will happen. I mean, there's always a temptation to give Miggy a rest and play Gordon and Maxi, and give Maxi another run against a slightly weaker side. Possibly, but I do think while there's the lack of a Bruno in midfield, you're going to have to play Willock and Joe Linton in that 3 with Longstaff. And I just think it probably is a case of he'll do with Gordon what he's done before, bring him in slowly, and play Maxi from the start, and then swap it over at that point. I don't think you'll see him take Miggy out of the firing line. It also could be the game that re-sparks Miggy's season. If he gets a goal, a couple of assists maybe, that just sparks him back into life, heading into the Liverpool game and into the final.
Well, that's a great time to get back to football. I love your optimism there, Dimitrov. Do we get a chance to win the PL if City gets relegated? If City get relegated, right, we'll sign Haaland as well, or for like £20. sign on fee or something like that. We'll sign Haaland and we'll win the Premier League. Absolutely love it, babe.
Speaking of which, I spotted Old Angry New Gamers comment before about Man City getting relegated. And this, I texted you earlier about this conspiracy theory.
Yes, it was this one here, wasn't it? You were talking about,
and it was my initial thought was, and I don't for one second think it will happen, but the Premier League won't look tough on a team and go, no, we're going to throw the book at you. We're kicking you out of the league. Well, Man City might just go, sod it, we'll go and form the Super. The others around Europe want to do it. We'll go and join the Super League. Bang, Premier League falls apart.
Well,
and they get exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, well, you're right. There is a very, real conspiracy theory here. But I think for me,
tinfoil hat on.
I was going to say, it's almost like some kind of episode of Quantum Leap. You're asking the hologram to work on the percentage chance of this actually happening. But I think looking at this, the Premier League have put themselves in a bit of a corner here for me. We'll maybe do a separate episode on this whenever Man City's punishment gets decided. But the corner they've put themselves in is they've insinuated that Man City have absolutely Ashwell said, yes, R.I.P. Dean Stockwell, Al, what a legend. So that they've put themselves in a corner where if they don't stick by their guns and punish Manchester City, then that sets the tone for other teams. Because then Newcastle United, I wouldn't say we've got money burning a hole in my pocket, right? But we could spend big if we wanted to, right? But they're trying to do things right by the FFP. And for me, if Man City just get a slap on the wrist, Mark, then our owners will say, well, fuck it. Let's just go for broke and smash 250 million quid in the transfer window, because who's going to stop us? And then, all of the Premier League teams will physically wet their pants on the spot. Jurgen Klopp being the first one to do it. If Newcastle United are able to spend willy-nilly, mates. So the Premier League will put themselves under real pressure here.
They will cause themselves problems if they don't put out a good enough punishment. If City are found guilty, that's the allegations at the moment on it. This is 4 years in the making. Obviously, it came out of. Obviously, they've had to wait for stuff following the UEFA one as well. We're talking like it could, get a result from this in the next 6 months. Will not. I think it's probably going to be years down the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the lawyers will start wrangling around stuff. City have already said that they've provided everything that was supposed to provide, and this will just go on and on and on. I don't think we're going to get a result to this anytime soon. So I think calling for a relegation is going to be a bit of an empty call at the moment, because I don't see that happening. If there's anything, transfer embargo, fine, something like Chelsea had perhaps, where they weren't allowed to sign players for a couple of transfer windows, something along those lines. I can't see them chucking a team out of the league. I really can't. Not for something like that. It will cause them too many problems.
Not a team managed by Pep Guardiola, because who would Sky salivate and swoon over then? In their little monologues to the best manager in the world. Dreaming of stroking that polo neck or whatever the fuck he's wearing on the sideline, because they are very obsessed with Pep. But yeah, it will certainly be an interesting one, mate. We'll certainly keep an eye on it, as I think a lot of football fans will do as well, mate. But I think that's us pretty much wrapped up then, mate, for tonight's What's Going On. As usual, thank you to everybody who's jumped in the comments. It really helps the episode flow. We always appreciate that. As I mentioned as well, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Come and join the Evermore community. We've got a great little squad there, as you can see in the comments. It's not just football, it's Quantum Leap, it's all sorts of stuff in our comments, mate. So just get stuck in. Why not? Everyone enjoys it. And if you can drop a like on the video, it really helps the channel grow, gets it around. And we're going to be back on Wednesday, Mark, aren't we, with the rest of the boys? Yeah. We've got plenty to discuss in terms of the topics arising from the game. Problems with Maxi, Dan Burn at left back. Is it risky? So make sure you tune in, guys. Live at 7 on Wednesday. And me, Mark, and the lads will catch you then. We'll see you later.
See you guys.